us tonight. We're here to learn about CCA, Community Choice Aggregation. And we have Jeff Domanski from Hudson Valley Community Power, who's going to give us all this great knowledge. He's going to bring in New Paltz Supervisor Neil Bettez and Robert Alberty for Director of Finance at Town of Clarkstown. Just a quick overview about this state-supported program. There's only 3 companies in New York State working to bring CCA to municipalities across New York State. Having said that, Orange County is not one of them. We cannot participate as in the program, but we can be here for all of the municipalities, and that is our role here tonight and going forward. We would like to help you in educating, promoting, outreach, whatever you need. We would like to assist you. So please, at the end, let us know how we can get you more information, how we can talk to the your colleagues in your community, how to build that level of interest. So just let us know and we will be glad to get you on board. So Jeff, take it away and please give us the details.
All right, thank you, Kate. I realize I'm remiss right off the get-go here in not including information for you, contact information for you. Something that please let us share that too towards the end, so folks can contact you directly and not just me. Information request. Again, folks, please do mute yourself if you're not speaking at this point in time, and turn off video. I thank you all for doing that, for those who have done it. And now this is our agenda for tonight. I will talk about community choice aggregation at a very basic level, describing what it is, which includes some of the other W's, where it is, why it is being pursued. So there's some very basic information just to give a sense of what is this thing that's called community choice aggregation, and very commonly by its acronym CCA. So it is, I will indulge in using that acronym frequently tonight in New York State. And then for some detail, for some color on what these programs are and how they operate, I have a section on some example CCA programs, focusing on those that are here in the Hudson Valley, including by all of the approved administrators that Kate just mentioned. There's representation, communities participating with each of the 4 approved administrators in the state currently. And then I thought it'd be interesting, particularly for this audience, to see some process steps for what it's like for a new community to start and to launch a community choice aggregation program. And then I have one slide that serves as a review for myself to make sure I've hit the most frequently asked questions. It's a slide I use commonly in our public outreach and education for the populace, for the members of the communities where we are launching programs. And then there will be a point where I ask you to separate 2 brain spaces, one for community choice aggregation and another for community solar. So I'm talking about the 5th bullet down on our agenda. They're similar in some ways, but there's definitely differences in the programs. They're parallel opportunities. You do not have to do them together, but they're so commonly confused that I thought it's worthwhile in pretty much every talk I do to draw some distinction about what these programs are and how they are similar and different. And then for closing thoughts, some interesting updates on CCA and community solar here in New York, what I think are some inspirational and good recent events related to the programs. So these are the speakers tonight. I am Jeff Domanski. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called Hudson Valley Energy, based here in Beacon, New York. And I am involved in a current community choice aggregation program, which I'll talk about on an upcoming slide, and one that's about to launch here in the Hudson Valley. And wonderfully, I have 2 wonderful guests here tonight who were willing to come and to contribute their thoughts and to be here to answer some questions from both the active CCA program and the one that's about to launch. In the about to launch category, we have Robert Alberty from Clarkstown, who is Chief of Staff and Director of Finance in Clarkstown. And he is in that partner community, as a very sizable one that's about to launch in Orange and Rockland territory. And I also have Neil Bettez, the Supervisor of the Town of New Paltz, who joined an existing community choice aggregation program just the start of this year. A lot of significant efforts through the fall, but officially joined a current aggregation in January of 2020. So thank you both for being here. And again, thank you, Kate, for having us. And if you're not speaking for the moment, please do mute yourself. I do hear some background noise, and I can take a look and try to mute, but if you're not speaking, please do mute yourselves. Thank you. So jumping right in, and I'm going to move nimbly. So again, a reminder to please do plan to contact us if you have a further dive of deeper questions you'd like to ask. What is community choice aggregation? In a simple sentence, it's a policy that enables municipalities to source energy on behalf of their community members, on behalf of their residents, their businesses, and other organizations. It was enabled in New York State in April of 2016, and it was done so for a number of reasons. There's a number of benefits for CCA programs. I'm jumping here to my my master mute button to see if I can limit some of the background noise that we're hearing. I think I found the source of that background noise. Okay, very good. On we go. So there are a number of public benefits associated with CCA, which is important because this is a program that enables those municipalities to act on behalf of their citizens in an opt-out fashion. Meaning, when this program goes into effect and it affects electricity supply, as I'll highlight going forward, it is a program that's allowed to operate by the state enabling order as an opt-out program, meaning people have to say if they do not want to participate, if they are one of the eligible customers in a community. And the majority of folks in the communities are eligible. So why are we doing this? This is a very common question we get. You know, it's an opt-out program. We're requiring people to say if they do not want to participate. There are a number of public benefits for what it provides. And here on this slide, I talk about a number of them, including at the bottom, the major three that are often our most common talking points about what the benefits are of CCA. But first, from a municipal perspective, passing a local law, which I'll talk about coming up, which is one of the first required step for a community to pursue and to launch a CCA program, it is an enabling tool. It allows that city or town or village the authority to explore whether this makes sense. And ultimately, if it does, for reasons that they identify and make clear in the arrangement to proceed, that they can do so, that they can basically form a buying club on behalf of their community members for electricity supply. It empowers the communities. That's the idea. There's a number of state programs in New York associated with improving the function of the electricity grid from the challenged, vulnerable, and inefficient grid that we have now to improve it to be a more distributed, more resilient, cleaner grid with cleaner sources of energy on it in a way that does not lead to higher costs for all of us in New York. The state has this idea, and it's being demonstrated through programs like CCA, that you can have your cake and eat it too, that you can improve the grid, that you can bring on more clean energy sources, and you can, through the beautiful symbiosis of the marketplace, share benefits with community members where they can actually save money while doing so. And with CCA, the anticipated savings are about 5 to 10% over what people are paying currently for non-clean energy for their electricity supply. And that community, in addition to focusing on the source and the savings targets, it has the ability to dictate terms in the contract, including consumer protection. And this is very important, and this is a very important state goal. And sometimes it's not the most common one talked about with CCA, but there are so many aspects of it that provide consumer protection. For the members of the community, there are no individual contracts. They're not fixed into this program. There are fixed rates. It is supposed to be as transparent as possible. And people have had experience with supply options in the past where they get into a program that has fixed rates for a period, but then they turn variable and strange things happen and they try to get out of a contract and there's strange penalties. The idea of CCA is that it's a simple choice option which doesn't take away any of their existing choices, but it gives them a simple way to achieve these benefits. It is the default supply for those communities that go forward. It's an automatic action, which is also a bit of a decision-making gift for the members of those communities. They don't have to dig into the depth of all these different options and opportunities in the energy marketplace to derive some benefit. But even though it's a default choice, again, there's no restrictions. There's a free opt-out or cancellation from the program at any time. And as a public benefit, I've often used the analogy that the program is like a public swimming pool or a public tennis court, like where you're given a membership to the town pool, where you have to say if you don't want it, you can opt out or opt back into it at any time. It is structured in that way, for at least for our programs. And it is focused on bringing the benefits local, thinking about the benefits that come from having a more distributed grid, more renewable energy sources, which these programs encourage to increase system resilience. And with the creation of new projects, there's economic development and job benefits as well. So there are numerous public benefits, but the three main benefits that we'll talk about and that we often talk about with people are these three at the bottom. The ability to save money, the fact that it does provide a number of degrees of consumer protection, and promotes clean energy. With that last goal in mind, as an explanation of why CCA has been enabled in New York State and why a number of other states have allowed and are pursuing CCA. There are 7 states besides New York that have enabled CCA, and some of them going way back, Massachusetts to the late 1990s. But in New York, this is the highlights of the recently passed Community Protection Act, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. And there's good details here about what's now law, what the state has required in terms of goals, including 70% renewable electricity by 2030, moving to 100% renewable by 2040, and very high levels of goal for an amount of electricity from different types of clean energy on the grid, including storage by these years shown. CCA is a very powerful vehicle to get there. And as further evidence of that, I share a bit of a wordy slide with you, but it's a great program for if you don't know about the Clean Energy Communities program and you're doing work within your communities and you care about sustainability, you care about cost savings. This is a program that NYS-ERDA, the New York State Energy Research Development Authority, created for municipalities in 2016 as well, in the same year that CCA was enabled in New York State. A lot of words here, but wonderfully and simply put, the state said, through NYS-ERDA, these are 10 actions focused on becoming a more clean energy community that communities should consider for those many reasons. Community choice aggregation is on the list. It's number 9, but that is in no certain order because I'm sorry, I just got distracted by text. Because the program manager has said numerous times of the Clean Energy Communities program that this is the most powerful of the programs by far and away. And there at the bottom of the slide, I have included the link for this Clean Energy Communities program if you want to learn more. But we certainly know a good deal about it, so we can ask questions about it or we can talk about it afterwards. So again, digging into the details of what is CCA. There's a number of points that are valuable in looking at a utility bill to understand what CCA is. This is my utility bill. I mentioned I live in Beacon. I'm a Central Hudson customer. There's a number of points of information on this slide. People may not realize that your electricity bill is 2 bills in one. There's a delivery charges section and a supply charges section on your bill. Since the late 1990s in New York, when the electricity and gas markets were deregulated, utility companies were no longer allowed to generate or make money on supply. So the supply section of the bill is a pass-through for the utility companies. They make money. Central Hudson, Orange and Rockland, the other utilities in New York make money on delivery. That section at the top half of the slide is where they make their money. In essence, they are the UPS or the FedEx of the energy marketplace. They don't make the packages, in this case, the electricity that gets delivered, but they make sure it gets there safely and reliably. So for what we're affecting with community choice aggregation is just the supply section of the bill. And people have had the ability, since deregulation went into effect in New York State, to go find an alternative supplier for their electricity. The state default, if nobody takes advantage of this, the fact that there is a marketplace and they do have a right by state regulation to source their electricity through a contract with another company, If somebody does not do that, the default is that the utility company will do that for them on a month-to-month basis. The local utility company is not allowed to fix the price. That's why that rate that's shown in the supply section of the bill varies month to month if you are having the utility company make the choice for you. In a CCA program, in the group buying club, in which partner communities issue a request for proposals to suppliers, that is most common that they do fix the rate. And this bill, my bill, shows what it looks like when you are in the program. There are typically in Central Hudson 3 line items under the cost for electricity supply section. I was going for my arrow and I skipped a slide. Right down here, there's typically 3 line items. When you're in the program, the entire program is encapsulated in one single line item. It shows the name of the supply company that the partnership selected, in this case, Dept Energy, which is one of the registered third-party energy supply companies in the state. And the program rate is shown on that single line item, and it is a fixed rate for the duration of the contract. In the case of our program that I'm part of, it's a 2-year contract. So for every month of the 2 years, this rate, 6.361 cents per kilowatt hour, will be my program rate multiplied by my usage. And that is inclusive. There's no other fees, there's no entry fees, exit fees, or penalties. Everything is rolled into that single rate. So this is what I call the where you are right now slide. Also pointing out your menu of choices, sort of like walking into a restaurant where they have a number of appetizers and a number of entrees, and you're in a prix-fixe and you want to pick, you can only pick one of each. So in terms of electricity supply, though, this is the menu before a CCA program. Your 2 choices as a customer in New York State, if you're not in a CCA program, are 1, you can have your local utility, and I have Central Hudson here because this is my Central Hudson slide deck, as a choice. Or you could take advantage of that marketplace and go with a third-party supply energy service company, which always require a contract. There is an asterisk on the first choice, the utility company, because, as I said before, that is the default by state regulation. The state says if you do not make a choice, then the utility company makes that supply choice for you. The third-party supplier, there's really 2 reasons for the most part why people will consider a third-party supply contract. 1, to get a better price than they're paying from the utility, or 2, to promote or support clean energy, renewable energy. I have not seen the case where the 2 of those go together, except with community choice aggregation. So again, saying that when you seek a third-party contract, you can get a less expensive rate for energy supply, or you can promote clean energy, but that is typically much more expensive than the utility company is paying for its non-clean option on a month-to-month basis. So that third box on our menu will be filled by CCA, which brings those 2 options together for that win-win scenario that we talked about. This is a quick screenshot from my computer as well as a Central Hudson customer, focusing on that second option on the menu above. This is a screen that you can navigate through Central Hudson's website, in this case, and most utility companies have this ability to help you find a third-party supply company. And the emphasis on this slide are a couple. There are lots and lots of options out there. There are dozens and dozens of registered energy supply companies out there. Many of them are great. Lots of people have been very happy with their third-party energy supply companies. But as a customer considering this, there are lots of options, and that can be overwhelming. When you click through on the option showing that I had 86 choices for electricity and 33 of them are green offers, it can be overwhelming. You do go to a nice table that lays out the contract terms and the pricing and the sourcing and other aspects of the programs that they're offering, but it can be overwhelming. And not many people at any one point in time take advantage of this. I think many people may have tried it, but typically we find that no more than about 15 or at most 20% of a community are taking advantage of a third-party supply contract for those 2 reasons that I talked about. And many people have tried it, as I mentioned. So maybe many more than 20% have tried it in a community, But there have been lots of bad experiences. As I was mentioning above, people have had bad experiences with rates that have gone very high, contracts that have seen very opaque and very expensive exit fees on contracts. So it just speaks to, again, how CCA can offer a simple option to take advantage of opportunities in the energy marketplace. So revisiting our menu for electricity supply choices, the third option is CCA. And in a community doing community choice aggregation, it becomes a default option. So that is the beauty of what CCA can offer. But again, remembering that you're not locked into that. You can reject it at any time with no penalty. You can take advantage of those other two choices at any time as well. So that's my overview of community choice aggregation. Kate, is there I see you sent me a couple messages. Are there any clarifying questions you've seen come in that I should address before we move on?
Folks are having a problem getting on, so I'm working with that.
I apologize.
No, let me help them get on, and I'll check the question box shortly thereafter, okay?
It's everyone that's registered, though. I don't know if I checked right up until that 5:00 to make sure people.
Yes, I believe this person was registered.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Kate.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to move on. It's into some detail about programs that are here in the Hudson Valley, as to put more information behind this idea of what a community choice aggregation is. Now remember to click on the slide so I can advance. So some examples of active CCA programs here in our region. I mentioned that CCA was enabled in New York State in April of 2016. The pilot program for CCA, the first CCA in New York State, occurred right afterwards in May 2016. And it wasn't a coincidence, since the actors that were working very hard to bring this to New York State were situated in Westchester, and so they were working to launch a program. And they were quickly able to get it off the ground in the following month. It was a program that started in May 2016, and in their first contract, they went out with a proposal request, and they got a 2-year contract. And it was initially about over 100,000 accounts. That's households, meter accounts, not population. And the program showed that it can work. The win-win-win scenario we talked about can work. Between the start of the program through the first 2-year contract, they repeated it because it went well, and entered into a second 2-year contract with the utilities in Westchester. And it was 20 communities when they did the first 2-year contract, and then the second 2-year contract, it increased to 27 communities, more joined in that second go round. But between the start of the program in May and the last time they did a full accounting of benefits, which was December of 2018, there was a cumulative savings of $15 million, with the majority of participants in a 100% clean energy rate option. It was at the time the largest clean energy buy in New York State history. And currently in the current contract, the one between that started in May of 2018, 24 of the 27 towns have chosen a 100% clean energy option as a default. And I'll talk about the fact that programs can include more than one price option, more than one source option. So I'll give details on when I talk about this next program. This next program is the Hudson Valley Community Power Program, and it's one in which I'm involved. My organization is a local program manager, doing outreach and education and serving as a resource within the partner communities. We launched in the middle of last year. We launched originally with 6 communities, but we're now, with additions that were allowed by the supplier that we selected, we're now up to 10 communities. And Neil Bettez, his Town of New Paltz, was one of the communities that joined towards the end of 2019. And we recently just added the Town of Clinton. It is a 100% in-state renewable energy default program. All of the 10 communities have chosen 100% clean energy from New York State, which is now mandated by the state regulatory requirement that any renewable energy sold through a CCA program has to be connected to the New York State grid. So it is bringing the benefits even closer. This was not the case the first time they launched the pilot program in Westchester, where the clean energy was sourced from out-of-state wind. But the second time they did the program, it was New York State Clean Energy. Down below in the bottom section, there are 3 programs that are worth knowing about. There's in terms of administrators, let me go back to the top. Westchester Power Program. The Westchester Power is one of the 4 approved administrators in New York State, and their focus is Westchester, doing the Westchester Power Program. My partner, the approved administrator for the Hudson Valley Community Power Program, is an organization called Jewel Assets, and their division focused on CCA is Jewel Community. I am working with them also to launch the Rockland Community Power Program, and I have slides up ahead to describe the partners in the slides coming up. Another approved administrator is a company called Good Energy. And they have, last time I checked, and I stand to be corrected, but last time I checked, they were working with 5 communities in the Hudson Valley, from Rockland County all the way up to Greene County. So 5 communities selected Good Energy as their administrator. And I think there might be another one that's about to start. I did mention briefly the Rockland Community Power Program, and that's about to launch in 2020. That's with 6 communities currently, all in Orange and Rockland territory, and all actually in Rockland County, thus the name Rockland Community Power. And again, that's launching a little bit later in 2020. And then there's an organization that is situated further upstate, another nonprofit called Mega, that is an administrator. And they have a couple of other CCAs that are in operation upstate, further upstate, but they're about to launch a very significant CCA, what I still consider the Hudson Valley region, with the Capital District, Albany, and 12 other communities around Albany, for a total of 90,000 accounts. That is also going to launch later this year. So these are just a quick view of some CCA programs in the Hudson Valley. A little more detail into what a partnership looks like is the Hudson Valley Community Power Program. Hudson Valley Community Power is a partnership of all of the logos in the lower left hand of this slide. The logos that are shown there underneath the community partners are the 10 municipalities, the cities and towns and villages that are all part of this CCA, that have all taken the steps required to be in a CCA program. And we did launch, and this is an active program. I mentioned Jewel Community Power. That's the logo in the lowest left part of the slide. They are the administrator of the program. My organization is located to the right. That's Hudson Valley Energy. Direct Energy is the supplier that this partnership selected to provide the rates that we were looking for and the sourcing that we were looking for, meeting the requirements that were set out for the program. And I do include, though they're not part of the contract, Central Hudson on the slide, their logo, because to emphasize the point that this program does not replace Central Hudson, does not replace the utility. It could not be done without the utility. The logos that are shown above the community partners, there's the city of Beacon, the city of Poughkeepsie, the town of Phillipstown, town of Fishkill, Marbletown, the village of Cold Spring, the village of New Paltz, and the town of Clinton, but also the town of New Paltz. And you can stop hearing my voice and to hear some description, some color of what the experience was like in the program, I'd like to turn it over to Neil Bettez to speak. So Neil, I'm going to make sure you're unmuted. Good. So share your thoughts on the experience of a CCA program.
Sure. So, initially I was not a big proponent or an advocate of the town moving forward with the CCA. We were already a clean energy community. We had done enough of the 10 items to qualify for that. And as a board, we only have so much bandwidth to get things done. And I like to tell my board that, we really can only do so many crazy things before we lose the goodwill of our residents. And being an early adopter, there's always a risk. There's just more things that can go wrong. And people ask, well, why are you doing this? My neighbor in town, they're not doing it. Why are you making me do this? And so, we decided not to move forward right away, but several residents came forward and really pushed the board to do it. It doesn't happen that often, but they were pretty hard hard-nosed with us, and eventually, we relented. And in the end, doing the CCA with Juul was pretty much one of the easiest things we've ever done. Pretty much turnkey. We voted on it, and it was just pretty much taken care of after that. And we get complaints about pretty much everything we do or even don't do. That's just how it is, right? Every town and village and probably county has their own social media, Facebook page, and everyone's an expert. But this not so much. I mean, there was a little bit of griping, about big government, things like that. But a lot of their neighbors immediately weighed in, and several people have actually thanked us for doing it. What they kind of described to me is that it was the same story of several times, right? They said, well, I've been wanting to switch to a green energy provider for a long time, but as Jeff was saying, you go in and it's overwhelming. There's so many choices, and in the end, it's like, well, you think you're going to make the wrong choice, so people just don't do it. They're afraid they'll get locked into some contract. They'll have to pay lots of fees, and so they don't do it. And Jeff won't say it, but there are some predatory companies out there. That was pretty clear to us, when we were going through this process with the signups going on. Even I got these letters from companies that were very misleading and on like strange letterhead, trying to convince people to sign up, because we were being a CCA. And so there is a lot of stuff out there that I think rightfully so, people just don't do it. And what the people told me, and my residents have said, they appreciate that we went through the effort to kind of vet the different companies and find a good deal for them. And even some people that initially said, oh, I'm not gonna, I like my choice, I like to do what I want. They ended up signing up because they like saving money. And a lot of them are not crazy, tree huggers. They like to save money, and they do with this program. So I think it worked out really well. I would recommend other towns to do it. I'm glad we did it. Personally, I did it, and I'm seeing a big savings on my bill, just with my own stuff. So I think it's worth moving forward. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
That's great, Neil. Thanks so much. I'm so glad you mentioned about the predatory companies out there. I'm getting to the point where I'm not afraid to mention one of them too, because they've been so predatory in targeting our communities with misleading ads. I mean, the energy marketplace is confusing enough as it is, but those bad actors have created conditions that have made the decisions around this place and are made actors in them well-earned distrust. And so that's one of the things that we really work to address directly, is trying to build up the trust and confidence for people to make decisions in this space. I'm really glad you mentioned that one company. I'll leave them nameless right now, but I can certainly share some stories.
And I guess I thought, maybe once it started, people would complain some more and complaints would pick up, but nothing. I mean, I kind of forgot that we even did this. There has been zero. We get calls about everything. Too much snow.
After you guys had the experience that we won't talk about, I know there was a consolidation effort that I won't mention in detail. And you guys were worried about doing this program in a default, an opt-out fashion, and it has been great. I think, I thank you guys for the outreach that you guys have done as well. That's helped a great deal. And just to let people know, as local program manager, our job is to take the burden off the leadership. We have the call center, we have the email, we have the meetings where people can come and ask questions and vent. Sometimes they vent, but then we turn them around pretty quickly. All right, so thank you, Neil. I'm going to move on. Thank you for staying here too. I'm sure folks might have questions for you. And I do see in the chat window, somebody did ask, can a single town of 11,000 form a CCA? The general black and white picture that I came into my first understandings of CCA a number of years ago were that you had to get, for the idea of a buying club, to get the volume of leverage, you had to have a certain number of households or accounts to have leverage in the marketplace. It was a certain story that, having experiences we've seen from other states and in New York State with the pilot program, we had talked about a sweet spot being 30,000 to about 80,000 households. Anywhere within there was getting over the threshold and not too big to scare away some of the suppliers when you went out for bids. But I've learned since then that there are multiple ways to approach CCA, and it is possible. I mean, 11,000 is that if that's population, it's it's probably, if we're talking 11,000 population, then the accounts are probably about a third of that. It is on the small side, but there are multiple ways to join. The experience of New Paltz town and village and Red Hook, they were able to join into an existing CCA with our program because the market allowed it and the supplier allowed it. So there are multiple ways to approach it. So it's definitely worth starting the process and then exploring the ways that to best do it. Because there are variabilities. And one of the beautiful things about Joule is their knowledge of the marketplace, and the other administrators as well. They know the energy marketplace and can help guide the decision of when to go and how best to go. All right, so I'm going to move forward. So this is a very detailed slide, but this is the meaty slide that people care about. This is where does the win-win actually work? Can you actually get the cost savings with the clean energy? What's shown on the slide are a number of lines related to program rates, the dollars per kilowatt hour. The red arrow points to a benchmark, the challenge, to the suppliers when a program starts. And this is an adjusted benchmark. It was a little bit higher when we launched the Hudson Valley Community Power Program, and I did acronym the HVCP. But this was what we told suppliers, that what we show here is a 24-month average from Central Hudson. And it is basically that serves, some period of an average serves as a benchmark that the suppliers have to beat with, for us, we have to have a 100% renewable option. 100% clean energy, solar, wind, or hydro, though there are discussions of anaerobic digestion being a source that we are exploring bringing in, but we're very limited in the types of renewables we'll allow. And the rate has to include our program administrative fee that allows Joule and my organization to administer the program and still be less than that benchmark price. And so that red arrow shows what is the current benchmark. And when we started, it was a little bit higher. The rates have been lower from the utilities. But the green line is our 100% renewable rate. That's a 2-year fixed rate for 100% renewable, and that's 6.36 cents per kilowatt hour. But we did include, and we asked the suppliers to include, a second rate for a mix of sourcing that is similar to what the utilities provide on a month-to-month basis. There is nuclear, there is fossil in there. There's probably approaching 30% renewable by state requirement, but it is more of a traditional standard mix. And it is slightly less than our 100% renewable for the Hudson Valley Community Power Program. It's 6.08 cents per kilowatt hour. This small difference between these rates shows you the power of these two rates right here, shows you the power of the CCA program. The 100% renewable is more expensive, but it is just slightly more expensive. I mean, we're talking about, not even 0.4 cents more expensive. As an individual customer, the yellow line represents my analysis of the third-party energy supply companies. When I showed you that screenshot of my ability to get different offers, the average of what I found was about 7.5 cents. As an individual customer who had to enter into a contract that had a minimum participation, that had an exit fee, that had sourcing not necessarily from New York State, much more opaque experience. So that shows the difference between the green line, our program rate, and what an individual can do. The yellow line shows the power of the program. But you may wisely ask, how is your program doing against reality since you launched the program? When we launched our program with the original 6 communities, the price from Central Hudson was up here. It was 6.73 cents per kilowatt hour, and we were very happy because that was above our program rates. But those of you who looked at your utility bills and pay attention to such things, the rates did drop this past fall in Central Hudson territory and other utilities for a number of reasons, including a much more mild a much more mild summer than we typically experience. And so there were 4 months when the program rate was lower rate. But after that 3rd month, it was trending back up. And you could see, and these are the numbers on the right, that these are the rate went right up to our rate. So right when New Paltz and the 2 New Paltzes and Red Hook joined, it was above our standard rate. And it was right at just slightly below our renewable rate. And the most recent published rate from Central Hudson has gone back up above our rate. And this is their April published rate, showing that the program can work. It can work. It shows the variability, that there's not a guaranteed savings, that we do anticipate, even with the fluctuations and the weirdness that we're living through right now in markets, we still believe over the remainder of the program that we will bear out and have a win scenario that we expect, where this program will work. It's certainly been a much better program for folks in the 3 towns that joined most recently, and actually Clinton, who just recently joined. So this is the program that we're about to launch, as I mentioned, in Rockland County, which includes Clarkstown, Orangetown, the village of Haverstraw, the village of Nyack, South Nyack, and Upper Nyack. It is in Orange and Rockland territory, but we are still the program administrators, and this little spot here is where we will to insert the logo for the supplier that we select as a partnership in the not too distant future. We hope within a few months, or maybe within a couple of months. And this has been Rob. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love to hear your thoughts on CCA. And thank you again for being here.
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, to echo a lot of what the supervisor said, you'll always have people that are going to look at this, very skeptically because of the way that deregulation has played out and the way that maybe certain companies can be rather aggressive in pursuing their contracts, and sometimes people may have found themselves in a situation where they were in a contract they weren't happy with. I think from our standpoint, when the supervisor was pitching this to the town board and the people of the town of Clarkstown, as well as the supervisors in our neighboring towns, you know, we always started with the concept that there's already been a choice made for you, and that choice was made in Albany. If you're a customer who goes with the default choice, your default choice of Orange and Rockland was chosen for you. So all we're doing is trying to leverage our resources in a way that makes the default choice better for you. And so far, I think people have been pretty receptive to it. Jeff, I know that you have hosted a couple of informational meetings around Rockland County, and I think people understand that. And I think one of the larger aspects of this, once again, the supervisor mentioned, was the idea of it being win-win, or I like to say, saving green by going green. I think a lot of people, think about the environment. They want to make an impact, but maybe they're not willing to go as far as maybe some might like. But when you tell them that they can accomplish something good environmentally by also saving money and saving money in their wallet, it certainly makes it a very strong pitch. And I always tell this to Jeff and to anybody, but if we put this RFP out and the price isn't right, we're not doing it. So the burden is always going to be on the third party administrator to make sure that we're getting the right price. And we're very excited to get on board with this with our neighboring communities. I think another advantage was the Westchester example. It's right across the Hudson from us, and it's always very helpful when you can have somebody else kind of go first, quite honestly. And when you see the success that they've had in Westchester, it takes all of these anxieties that, whether it's elected official or people who live in the community might have about quote unquote big brother, or some kind of notion that somehow someone's making a decision for them. um, it can melt away when you really come back to these 3 things. One, the decision has already been made for you. We're trying to make a better decision for you, and we're trying to do it locally. 2, we're saving green by going green. 3, we're actually expanding options, because when you go to Orange and Rockland, you're just getting whatever rate they have. Under this arrangement, you'll be able to actually choose between the most green and something that's a little less green that saves you a little bit of green. So we've actually doubled the amount of choice that people might have had just sticking with the default choice that they currently have in Orange and Rockland. And finally, I just think that people are excited to see government do something that impacts them. And, I always talk to constituents. I say, you're not going to see a tremendous impact, you know, on your electricity bill, but one, it will be lower, and two, you will be able to vote, if you will, for renewable energy. And that's something that people are very passionate about. And those that aren't very passionate about it, they do believe in it if it makes sense for them. And that's really what I think CCA, the best benefit of CCA is for our constituents going forward.
Thanks so much, Bob. That's great. And thank you also for sticking around. I don't see any questions jumping in immediately for you. I'm sure there'll be some questions at the end. So what have these leaders in these communities done? That's where I want to go next in terms of our presentation. I'll move pretty quickly, though I can tell already I'm going to go a little bit past 8 o'clock tonight, so I hope you will bear with us. So what is the implementation process? I just want to talk about the process and steps for new communities. This is a very detailed slide, and to answer a question sent, yes, I will definitely be sharing the slides. Kate has them, but I'll make sure that they're available, and if you contact me, I can send them to you directly as well. But we'll get them in multiple ways to you. But this shows the required implementation steps, and the highlighting shows tasks that a municipality can do in parallel. The first thing a municipality must do, a city or town or village, is adopt an enabling local law. It must pass a local law enabling CCA. The NYS-enabled website has a template that actually Jewel had a hand in developing for them. And we have examples that we can share from the numerous communities that we've had the pleasure of working with as partners. The next step is, and it can be done concurrently, is selecting a CCA program administrator. And we talked about the 4. After that, there is a required public outreach. The state requires that there be awareness building. And that's where I focus on. And we go beyond the requirements. We really, we want to reduce the surprise factor in all of this. And so we do outreach in multiple ways. After we do outreach for a minimum of 2 months, we submit for approval to the Department of Public Service. This is a regulated program, so we do need to seek the approval. And that could take 2 to 4 weeks. At that point in time, we are allowed as a partnership to get the data from the utilities company for the communities that we're representing, for the members of the community, so the suppliers know what they're bidding on, how big the pool of demand is, so that they can bid appropriately. Because they're going to be locked in. If they provide what we want and it meets what the towns are looking for, particularly with that cost savings coupled with the renewables, that win-win scenario, they're locked in, so they need to know what they're bidding on. And then we can issue the RFP with that knowledge in hand to the request for proposals, and then award it. And then we do a kickoff meeting, more outreach and awareness to let people know what the program actually looks like. And then ultimately it kicks off with a letter to every eligible customer that is paid for by the supplier, but is sent from the leaders of the communities, the mayors and the supervisors. Building that trust. They see people they know. So it's not something, we do our best to make it not get lost in the confusion of other companies out there, that this is their local program with the city, town, village seal on the messaging that we do. And we try to distinguish from those other actors out there when we do our messaging. We don't do unsolicited contact other than just the program materials. There is a period of 30 days for people who never want to be part of the program. While anybody could opt out at any time, there is a minimum of 30 days that people have by regulatory requirement to opt out, so that no change can need happen for their arrangement with the utility company. After which we launch the program. We process and do the rollover with the utility company and launch the program. And the line item change happens on people's bills for the CCA program. This is the same set of steps, but just shown in a Gantt chart, showing that the accumulation of those different steps, showing the parallel steps, a rough give or take estimate of about 10 months. from start to launching a program and having it go live. And I know there's a lot of detail, but happy to share these slides afterwards. This is a picture to get a sense of how much interest there is in CCA in New York State. All those little points on there are towns and cities and villages that have passed local laws. They are not necessarily in a CCA program yet, many are, but these are the towns and cities and villages that have passed the enabling law, which comes with no restrictions on them. They do not have to proceed to CCA. It just allows them to explore. But it's well over 100 points on the map now, 100 cities and towns and villages that have done this. So getting towards the end of the CCA information on their one side of our brain space, let me just run quickly through these frequently asked questions. A common one we get, particularly from folks who like their utility company, is, does this replace my utility company? And the answer to that is no. This is all done in coordination through one utility bill with the local utility company. Logistically, there is no change from what people are doing now. They just continue to pay their utility bill. To the question, why are we doing this? How can you do this? It is enabled by state regulation, and it is done for the three benefits that we talked about: the potential for cost savings and promoting clean energy from New York State in a way that protects consumers from a bad experience. Will this save me money? It can. It's structured to be, and for the communities that we work with, we only proceed if the prices we get are less than that benchmark of the 12-month historic price from the utility, but it's not guaranteed. Just, harken back to our graph with that dipping line, a little bit of a big dipper that happens. People want to know, am I locked into this for the duration of the contract? No one is ever locked into this, and that's one of the important points of consumer protection. People can exit freely at any time. This question, what happens after the contract ends? Will the rate go crazy? This is from the experience of having been in contracts with those third-party energy supply companies, particularly the bad actors. People have had experiences where they're in a fixed rate, it turns variable, or they have a hard time getting out of a contract. For us, it just ends after the contract period, and people will automatically go back to the utility. But as the Westchester program showed, it can seamlessly repeat. It can't be extended. All the required steps that we show have to be repeated. Not the local law and not necessarily selecting the administrator, but all of the outreach and the going out for bid again and the public notice all have to be repeated to do this again. It's part of the consumer protection aspect of this program. So 2 answers as a transition for where does the energy come from. The renewable electricity for CCA has to come from New York State. And so I think that's a wonderful addendum to the program. As we transition over to our second brain space, I will start talking about community solar, where the requirement is that people can support through a parallel program, not CCA, but it does work with CCA, a program where they promote local solar development in the same utility territory that they're in. So that's what community solar is in a very high level description. And another wonderful aspect about community solar is that it comes with guaranteed savings on many of the models that are available out there. This is something that we're promoting, and we have been approved, and the Joule has been approved through their implementation plan to promote community solar in concert with CCA, with the idea of making people aware of and build trust towards something that really is a no-brainer opportunity. But there are lots of companies providing community solar, and many of them are wonderful. So it's not something that has to be done with CCA. I will jump briefly here to talk about CCA and community solar. For those of you who don't realize or don't understand what community solar is, this is something structured currently. It's something that people have to subscribe to. This is, while CCA is an opt-out program, community solar is an opt-in choice. You have to decide to enter into an agreement for community solar as an individual customer. And in essence, you can do this if you do not have solar on your home or business now. If you do, you cannot do community solar because the state considers that double dipping. The benefit that you derive from it is the same, it derives from the same benefit that you would have in terms of a net metering arrangement from a solar system being on your house. The idea from the state's perspective, like CCA, is to spread the benefits of the evolving grid, the improving grid, to customers who are not already deriving benefits from a decision to put solar on their house. It's a there's multiple models out there, but there's many models that follow a simple model where you subscribe with no upfront money, no monthly subscription fees, no exit fees, and for many companies, there's no minimum participation. It is a 25-year contract that you get into, but you can get out of it at any time. But to point 3, it is structured to be just a simple monetary credit that is a guaranteed credit that you'll receive on every month that the system that you are a virtual owner of, that field of solar on the left, you are helping the developer meet the state requirement of being a virtual owner of panels within that field, and thus you receive a monetary credit for helping them meet the state requirement of getting subscribers for their field of solar. This is different than what has been happening with a lot of fields of solar that have been developed in previous years, including for people who know Beacon, and there's other places, Clarkstown too. There was fields of solar put up on former landfills. Prior to community solar, a developer would put up a field of solar and sell all the power pretty much to the utility company. Community solar requires a developer to get a subscriber for every panel that they put up to spread the benefit from the state's perspective, and thus they are rewarded more for doing so, and they're able to share that monetary benefit with their subscribers. In a nutshell, that's how it works. To differentiate community solar from CCA, our CCA menu is on the left. It's the menu I've shared with you before, where the same rules apply. You can only pick one option from each menu. You are familiar, I hope, with our CCA electric supply menu, where CCA is one of the options. On the solar side, the same concept applies. As a utility customer in New York State, these are your 3 options with respect to solar. Option A, you don't have to do anything about solar. You can just go on with your life. You don't have to put it on your house. You don't have to join community solar. But the second choice is, and you may have already done so, you put solar on your home or business and enter into either a lease arrangement or a direct purchase arrangement that derives some financial benefits for you. If you are not choosing A or B, you can do C. You can do community solar. Options 1, 2, and 3 on the supply side, and options A, B, and C on the solar side are mix and matchable. You don't have to do CCA to do community solar. You don't have to do community solar to do CCA. All the options apply. So just to differentiate on what these opportunities are. It is a very, these simple, there's the developers that are providing simple consumer-friendly options, consumer-friendly contracts. Those are the ones that we are promoting and supporting. And these are examples of how the communities, that our partner communities, see the benefit and are helping to bring that awareness to their residents. What's shown here on the slide right now is a letter that the mayor of Beacon, the mayor who was the mayor last year, wrote to every citizen about CCA and the community solar opportunity, just pointing out that you should take advantage of this. It's a first come, first served opportunity. He's saying you should do so because it is just a way to reap additional benefits off of your utility bill. The image on the right is similarly a flyer that Mayor Casale had helped us produce to help spread the word about the benefit of the program. A last slide, just to show the distinctions between CCA and community solar. I won't go into details about it, but what's represented here, to emphasize the point that you don't have to do both programs, you can do neither program, or you can do a combination of the two. This is one bill with 4 different scenarios. The bill on the left, you might remember there's the delivery charges and supply charges in everyone's bills. In a simplified way, I'm saying no programs, your delivery charge is 60, your supply charge is 40, your total bill is 100. In the scenario, as in Hudson Valley Community Power, where the rate that we received for CCA supply was 7% lower than the benchmark, the bill for this month would be 7% lower in the supply charge, resulting in a $97.20 bill. So a slight improvement. But that is an apples to orange comparison because in the second scenario, it's 100% clean energy. The third scenario is what it looks like with a simple monetary credit from community solar without being in CCA. A $100 bill, a 10% monetary credit results in a $90 bill. And then the last example is the combination of CCA with community solar, showing that you can get that if history works out, if history is a predictor of the future and you do derive a 7% benefit over the life of the program, you do get the 10% monetary credit month to month by being a community solar customer. You get the biggest benefit in the combination of the two programs. So those are the two distinctions. And my very last slide tonight, and I thank you all for your patience, and then we'll open up for questions and I'll review the chat window. But just some milestones and updates associated with CCA and community solar. Just put up here as a reminder, this all started in New York with April 2016 enabling order by the Public Service Commission. This is when it all started. In March of 2018, I did mention above, but here it is in words in front of you, there was an amendment to the order such that all clean energy, all renewable energy sold through a CCA has to be connected to the New York State grid, has to be in New York State or directly connected to the New York State grid, bringing the benefit even more local to bring the improvements to the New York State grid, which is a wonderful additional benefit of this program. A highlight from it last year, which is maybe a little bit up in the air given the extreme budget challenges that everybody is facing everywhere now, but it was very exciting last year in the 2019 New York State budget as an indication of the belief in the power of CCA as a transformative tool. The state included a $1.4 billion provision in the budget for development of renewable electricity for exclusive sale through CCA programs. I haven't heard that that's changed, and I believe there's wonderful things afoot, and great things have happened in the last legislative session around clean energy and siting orders and the like, such that I do believe that things are still very rosy looking forward for renewable energy development generally in your state, but in particular, you saw all the points on the map. There is a strong belief that in the coming years, CCA will continue to be a very powerful mechanism because it is something that protects consumers and can deliver the other two wins as well. On the last point, actually, I wrote that incorrectly. I have to correct it. It was December of 2019. The state said that consolidated billing had to take place. And I didn't mention this, but with community solar, one of the reasons that community solar has been an opt-in program, beyond the fact that it's first come, first served, there's not an unlimited amount of community solar projects out there, but there is a logistical hurdle. While CCA is all done on one bill, for now, community solar is a separate bill. You get the credits on your utility bill for your production, but you have to pay to get the money to the developer, and they do want the money, they have to send you a separate bill. The state said in December 2019, no more of that. So we anticipate in 2021, CCA and community solar will all be done through your same utility bill, which is a wonderfully powerful thing because it actually sets it up such that community solar may become an opt-out program as well because logistical hurdles are reduced and it could actually magnify the benefits in terms of cost benefits for programs looking forward. So that to say, with these milestones and updates, it is a very powerful opportunity. So I thank you for your patience. I did run over and I do see we have questions. Please do feel free to open up your microphones and I can manage them to a degree, but let me start with the chat window here. Oh, and I was, one of the first questions I got was, I believe from Kate, was excited to hear about the potential for anaerobic digestion as a source. I mentioned that currently we allow in our program with the suppliers, certified hydropower, wind power, or commercial scale solar. Just to let you know, with our current program, it is exclusively at this point in time hydropower and wind. We anticipate wind will be in the mix as well, because there is not yet commercial scale solar for sale through CCA programs, but that will be changing. The $1.4 billion that I mentioned is associated with that anticipated change, but we do anticipate, there is exploration actually of an anaerobic digester that's in the southern tier area that Jewel is in conversation with, which make a great deal of sense. Anaerobic digestion is largely the generation of gas for electricity generation from agricultural wastes as one of the major sources. There can be others, but that's what's being explored right now. I won't provide more detail because I don't want to befuddle the conversations that are happening now, but that is something that has some great potential.
This is that one that started at 7. It's winding up, and I don't know.
Right. I've been asked for a contact person in Phillipstown. I will provide that. I'll definitely follow up on that. Question: if suppliers are limited to New York sources, how does that impact price competition? It does. It's probably not as inexpensive as it could be if it was opened up to the renewable energy credit market nationwide, or even beyond the nation. So it probably does make the prices perhaps slightly higher by limiting it, but the benefits are, I think, outweigh the price impacts. Great prices are still to be had, even with the strange things happening right now as we're exploring the launch of the Rockland Community Power Program. We're still hearing good things from the suppliers about the ability to get good pricing. So you're right in sensing that maybe it drives up the price a little higher than it could be if if you had the ability to purchase the renewable energy certificates from anywhere. But I think the benefits of having it, regional benefits, outweigh that. A question: can a municipality work directly with the administrator to get through the process? Absolutely. I mean, that's what the is there for. It's to reduce the burden. And a common associated question we get with that is, what is the cost to municipalities of launching a CCA program? And the only costs are opportunity costs, time. Your time, the town board's consideration, the lawyer's review of the contract, which has been very well vetted at this point in time, at least for us and probably for the other administrators as well. But there are no costs per se, direct costs of launching the program. Even the mailing that goes out, say, as I mentioned before, is paid for by the supplier. Jewel and my organization, Hudson Valley Energy, we work a lot, months and months with the communities to get a program launched, but we do so at risk. We don't get paid for that. We only get paid through that administrative fee that's baked into the rate if the program launches. A question: did you mention the multi-year terms? I think that might be a question, and Kate, let me know if I'm misinterpreting this, that there can be different contract lengths that are agreed to. And that the answer is yes. When we launched the Hudson Valley Community Power Program, and when we launched the Rockland Community Power Program and go out for bids, we will receive multiple bids with multiple options. Not only different prices and some details about the sourcing, but different term lengths for the contract. For example, we went with a 2-year contract for the what was 6 communities and is now 10 communities in Hudson Valley Community Power, but there was an 18-month offer and there was a 3-year offer. And it's just a matter of weighing the different aspects of what we're looking for, including compliance with our no restrictions on consumers aspects of the contract that figures into the final decision. Kate, if I didn't answer your question, do let me know.
Well, the reason why I brought that up was when you said you'd have to start, once the term is over, you'd have to start a 10-month process again, which again requires time from the town board, the municipal staff, the attorney review. And if there's no problem with breaking a contract, then why wouldn't you go? Why wouldn't the board go for the longest term possible in order to avoid that work again?
Good, an excellent point. And I want to make one clarification too, if I said something misleading, but there is anticipation to exactly what you're saying, that as there is now increasing comfort with CCA since it's being done, we're beyond the pilot and others are launching, that the contract terms will get longer and longer. It's not unusual. We have been discussing the possibility of there being a 5-year contract. And matter of fact, the joining, the town of New Paltz, village of New Paltz, and Red Hook joining the Hudson Valley Community Power Program 6 months after the start date for an 18-month benefit that they joined for, and Clinton joining for 13 months, is with the idea that those communities decided to join because there is anticipation that the process will happen again and it'll launch. And our belief, and I think their belief, is that it will be for a longer contract. which they'll do because it will be beneficial. When you mentioned breaking contract, though, I just want to make sure I was talking about the fact that for community solar, for an individual subscriber, resident or small business, they can end a contract early for community solar. A CCA community member does not have a contract, but in a CCA, there is a three-party contract that cannot be broken. The three parties in the CCA contract are the administrator, the supplier that's selected, and the municipality. And so they're locked into that contract. All right, is that sufficient, Kate? All right, a question, can a CCA participate in a local microgrid? And that's from Olga in Highland Falls. And Olga, make sure you're unmuted because I will answer this question. And then as Kate wisely suggested, I'd like, I know you guys have been exploring CCA as well and maybe have something to share. I think you might have indicated to Kate that you might want to talk about it. But the question, can a CCA participate in a local microgrid? I'm not exactly sure of the logistics of that, but I do know that we are very interested in CCA being a mechanism, a platform to move towards microgrids. We talked about this getting closer and closer in terms of promotion of renewable energy projects. CCA, by current state regulation, must project a developer, a supply source must be connected to the New York State grid. So that's a statewide benefit. Coupling it with community solar brings it to this utility territory. But Jewel is very forward thinking and they are very interested in promoting even more local projects and working with and supporting the municipalities in developing projects that can be included within the CCA program. And we both were actually involved in state efforts and efforts around the Hudson Valley in terms of microgrid development. And we do know that that is a really valuable approach in terms of resiliency. And for those who don't understand what a microgrid is, it is basically the ability to island an area, a community, off from the broader grid. And so that you have generation within and can stand alone in case there is a disruption to the broader regional grid. And it does bring other benefits as well. It's a conversation for another time. There's other good webinars out there. But Olga, did you want to say more about your explorations?
Not really. I mean, we are still exploring and have had, a number of initial conversations with our local city and town officials, and really just trying to lay the groundwork for hopefully the fall when we can resurrect and get back to pursuing all our clean energy communities initiatives.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Olga. And I'm happy to be, as we've had as conversations in the past, happy to discuss with you and others too. I don't see other questions. I will say that absolutely these slides will be shared. We also have FAQs, frequently asked questions. You can go to the websites, HudsonValleyCommunityPower.com, the partnership website for the Hudson Valley Community Power Program, or the RocklandCommunityPower.com website for more information, and including FAQs on both CCA and community solar. But we're happy to provide additional information to people, template local laws, what the agreements look like that communities would enter into. So please don't hesitate to contact me. Let me go to the last slide here with the contact information. And this is my contact information. You can reach me at our team email, cca@hudsonvalleyenergy.org. There's my number, my direct number. Our program number is down below. That's our program hotline for both programs, 845-859-9099. And my colleague that I work closely with over at Jewel Community is Glenn, and there's his contact information as well, and it'll be shared on the slides. And Kate, do you want to, at least verbally share your information for folks to contact you, or they already have it?
They probably already have it in the email. And I think they can find me at the Orange County Planning Department. It is K Schmidt, SCHMIDT, at orangecountygov, all one word, .com, or the phone number is 615-3858. We'd love to help. And, while I would just ask if you do want to reach out to me, Jeff, I don't know what the next step is. I'd like to think when we are allowed to have meetings again, that maybe we could have a few across the county. And I was thinking maybe one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one at night, so that we make sure we can get as many people in the room to ask the questions. So if there are good times, if you want to host one in your municipality, please let us know. We'd like to just do maybe 3 or 4 around the county, especially in different utility territories, just to get the word out.
Thanks so much, Kate. And yeah, glad to help in any way with that. And I will say, Ralph, please do take note of, just to answer your question, of my contact information. If you wouldn't mind, I'll send you a message quickly. But you asked for a contact of a person in Phillipstown, and I recommend Richard Shea, the supervisor. A fantastic resource and very knowledgeable about these programs. And so I will be glad to share that with you afterwards if you contact me at this email or at this phone number.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining tonight. Please do go enjoy. And you've made it almost to Friday. And so I hope you all have great weekends. Stay healthy, stay safe, and stay sane. But thank you so much.